Man, that intro. What's up, bro? How's it going? Bernie's glitching out, yo. Bernie's glitching out. He's got the glitches and we got the witches. So, I want to see my cool jacket. Check this out. This is a jacket that a friend of mine gave me. One time I met this guy. And he was walking down the street. I was like, dude, cool jacket, bro. Hold on, I gotta get to like the. Can you see Jesus yet? Yeah. Cool jacket, bro, I say. I was like, cool jacket. He's like, cool. Yeah, thank you. You want it? Because that's what Jesus would have done. I'm pretty sure. Like, I think is the deal. So that's what you gotta do from now on. If anybody ever's like, cool jacket or cool shirt, you just like take it off, hand it to them, walk away. It's pretty much the way to go. I can't see Gnostik James, but Gnostik James should be here too. There he is. What's up, Gnostik James? How's it doing? How you doing?
How you doing, bud?
I think you have all the bandwidth. You got all the bandwidth in the house, which is cool. Bernie's got none of the bandwidth, which is fine because we can see his grin. And he's got a pretty decent smile. You have to admit, like, to have that kind of a smile after all this many years. Oh, and now he's an apparition that's disappeared. Oh, he's back.
Nice.
Well, why don't you give a little background? I mean, like, so you're a Gnostic, hip-hop, lyrical wizard, right? What would you say?
Miracle wizard. Yeah.
But literally, right? Like, kind of, you're...
Well, I'm I understand it. So like I'm aware of it, right? So like we were just talking about before. But yeah. So like not in a corny way or whatever, but I know that like yeah, there's power in writing, there's power in words. And there's a reason for stuff that they do. Like we got music that we listen to that there's chanting and this and that. And
It's true.
there's a reason. So like I do some of that and I got some like chanting and some things I repeat 3 times or whatever. And I think that's just kind of for fun, but like a lot of it is, well thought out, right?
Yeah, I mean, new theory by the way is that Bernie is max headroom because of his glitches. Bernie, if you want to add my screen to the share screen, I can pull up some of the stuff. But I was just thinking about what James is saying about the practicality of the practice, I guess, because people call it magic or whatever, but it's really like this practice. Oh, this is Black Jesus. But that's still kind of part of the title, so that kind of makes. Weren't we talking about AI or something like AI TuPac? Let's just go to like magic music or something like that. When you think about, we talked about this on the show the other night. No, you know what? It's better to talk about math music because you know a song by the fact that it's following rules, right? You know where it's supposed to go. You know how a song is supposed to work. There's sort of a progression that happens, and there's a natural response, like you feel a way while you're hearing certain words, and then there's this repetition. So, of course, people use this all the time. They might not want to call it magic. They might want to call it advertisement, right? Like, think about like commercial jingles, right? Commercial jingles are literally magic. I mean, at least in the way that we consider.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the power of advertising. That's the power of society. Like there's a 2 ways through music. You have through the beat and then you have through the words. Right. So like there's 2 ways that you can utilize that. Right. And it's happening to us whether we know it or not. So I feel like if I'm doing it for my life. So like trying to make it good. You know what I mean? And if you're gonna lie about something good. You know what I mean? Lie about having money when you don't have it. Don't lie about being a martyr and dying or something like that, right? Like
interesting. So like so a lot of rappers probably know this, right? Because like they're doing literal spells, like they're freestyle and spell casting
on themselves, and they're doing it. They're coming from the point of view of like, oh, like people are out to get me. Do. Like I understand that, but when I talk about it, I always try to come from a place of power, where I hold the power in the end. Always, and without being egotist, like trying to without like that's really what crafting, being a craft, good at your craft. That's what they say. When you're good at your craft, you're good at doing that, right? Mm-hmm. Like being able to speak in such a way where, like for me, I'm trying to speak in such a way where I'm not cursing myself for the future. I'm trying to break curses. I was talking to Bernie, my music 12 years ago, 15 years ago, I was cursing myself. Like if I had went on that path with my music, I would have put myself into a position where I would have probably died or killed myself just based on what I was saying. And the emotion, the meaning that I had behind it. And I think that happens. You hear about it and you're like, oh man, he was a prophet. He did it. It's like, yeah, he did it because he understood the power of words, but he didn't fully apply it to everything. And he didn't fully think about the shit, you know? So like, I've seen it happen too many times, you know? TuPac, we're talking about this right now with whatever, like.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I mean, like, let's talk about that. Like the TuPac curse. You think that, TuPac's one of his biggest things. He says his mother, who, by the way, practiced some sort of kind of.
I share birthday with her.
Yeah?
Yeah.
TuPac's mother's really interesting. She told him how to use words, right? That's like the big thing. TuPac's mother taught him how to use words instead of using his body. And so she gets this rap as being like super new age and peaceful. I mean, it's actually kind of esoteric. No one really talks about how spiritual she really is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the kind of person that in another world you could say would have been a kind of a sorceress or something like that. I mean, she's a very spiritual person, and like to use your words that way to solve problems, to stop violence, to create solutions, to inspire people. I mean, that's a power. That's a power that she was instilling, right? And she teaches.
Yeah. And he had that, and he created that, you know. But it had to be. It was being. I think that everything happens for a reason, you know, and I think even at that time, you know, he was coming from a place of so much anger and frustration, listening to the music before he passed. And like a lot of that is based on frustration, you know, and that kind of stuff moving forward could have caused destruction, I think, you know. So like God has a plan for everything, right?
Right.
And so with his music, you know, if you listen to it, like there was a lot of positive stuff, but there was a lot of potential. And as artists, you have that, you know, you can create destruction or you can create peace, you know. Like,
so what do you think TuPac created? Because like listening to his music, right? Like you've got a lot of I've seen a lot of like white girls at 11 years old in the early 2000s that became TuPac, you know, angry and they're into their little prison.
So sorry to bust in with James. We're going to be sharing a mic for a moment before I get the bandwidth downstairs working. And, the title of Resurrected Black Jesus, because in his Machiavelli album, or was there an album called Black Jesus?
No,
But
a song,
yeah, right. And that he was the first to be the hologram TuPac. And then, what if they do end up, if AI were to take its form in, TuPac as the first AI that came back. But then it's like you're living with the thug life rules, but like, it's like, oh, you can't drug deal around schools. But have we degraded society to that level that that's what's needed to save us? Or, there's some philosophical debates in there.
Well, yeah, and I think at some point our buddy will be joining. One of our friends who does some physics and science might be joining us too to talk a bit about AI holograms and what could be, in terms of that creation. But I think that's a really interesting thing. Before we get too deep into that, let me also say one of the reasons I'm really interested in this from the building of the new mind, right, perspective. So in AI, when they're building the RNNs, like the recursive neural nets, right now, what they're really impressed with is the language, the large language models, so the LLMs. So language models are really cool because you can get all these conversations, you can take all this text and you can have it respond in text, and you're just like, wow. And using that, you can even like make art to an extent. But the problem with an LLM is that it doesn't have understanding of causation or physics, right? So if I were to take like a bottle and like were to try to like put it in front of a monkey or an orangutan or a chimpanzee or something, they all know like they can knock it over with not very much force, unless the bottle is held on a table, and that table, if they try to use that same amount of force, the table is going to be harder to knock than the bottle itself, right? And so the fact that AI doesn't understand that right now is because we're training LLMs, large language models, instead of self-supervised learning RNNs, so like SSL RNNs. So that would be the kind of left-right brain version of this. We're building one system right now, which is really great at communication and language, and that's kind of this magic sorcery, because AI doesn't really know what it's saying. It doesn't have the context or to understand the consequences of those actions, which is really interesting because you'd think we would have built the math calculator thing first.
Even, right?
I have no idea because you literally are becoming a glitch.
Put into it and it can't even spell.
Bernie, run over to James's computer and say what you're trying to say, because I have no idea what you're trying to say. But yeah, so like basically it could spell a word, but it wouldn't know the meaning of the word. It has relevance. It can say like this is used in this thing or this is, but doesn't know why, and it doesn't actually understand the consequences. So when you start asking it for meaning, everyone's like, oh well, AI doesn't understand meaning. Well, a big thing about meaning is consequence, right? Like knowing what happens. So James was talking earlier. There's a long-winded way to get to what you were saying, but you had before the show we talked a bit about how you had made rap songs that had, self-fulfilling prophecies. And you wish maybe you hadn't said them that exact way, but you wondered, like, did you even have the power not to? Because that rhymes. I mean, it was true in the formula sense that it would happen. You didn't know it, but it was.
Yeah. No, you don't know when you're creating till it happens, like just in general. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's you create it, and I understand it now. Like you look at it, and sometimes you're like, why would I say that? Why do I say that? But it always means something. It turns into something. Like, especially if you continue to live your life in certain ways, right? Like, it doesn't mean that it's gonna always stay that way or that it's gonna necessarily happen. It just means where you're at that moment, that's how you thought. And if you live your life according to that, that's going to happen. Like if you keep on doing whatever is going to happen, you're fulfilling it, right?
Yeah.
So I do feel like
Traction
So I do feel like from
right?
since Pac left,
your life.
since Pac passed and stuff, and Biggie and everything and all that, I do feel like music went into more of this money, cash, hose, pussy, and everything. And I think that might not be a bad thing, because it was getting pretty negative. It was getting to a point where it could have started a revolution. It can start a revolution. Music started the revolution.
So instead they use the secret. They use the secret to ask for more Benjamin bucks instead of more progress.
Essentially, it's like I think music got put on pause. The real got put on pause. Then it did, but I'm back. So like, and if I make it, the reel's gonna be like the reel's gonna
soul,
be, right? Yeah, it's gonna come back, and we're in a good position. There's a lot of really good artists, that have the capacity to bring, Pac's message back. AI, whether AI or whether whatever, if they would ever even attempt anything like that. I think that Bernie, coming up with that idea, I think that's a really cool premise of something, like that's a really good sci-fi movie.
Well, it's not that far off from what's going on. Like if you look at the ABBA hologram, for instance, like ABBA's already in the process of becoming immortalized prophets. ABBA's become immortalized prophets with the hologram show. They're younger in their hologram show. They're still alive while it's happening, so they have an ability to control the AI selves. Again, what I'm talking about, like the self-supervised learning, is really interesting when you're talking about the self as spreading into multiple life forms. One being a mechanical life form, and the other is the degrading biological life form. If you do that while you're still alive, then you can actually have a lot more control over the creation. With TuPac, what I find interesting, because you're talking about this TuPac Jesus. It's not just TuPac, it's TuPac Jesus. And so I recently saw a documentary talking about John Chow, who went to the Sentinel Islands, which is the island that you're not supposed to go to, because that's where humans get like killed who visit. And humans are not allowed. There are humans who live there, and they have their own native reality. Some people call it the human zoo because it has no vaccinations and no law that we can superimpose upon them.
Natural.
It's
the most
as long as this
tribal.
As long as, well,
Unvexed.
As long as the Sentinel Island exists, in ideology, Eden exists, right? Because Eden is this idea we've been talking about, the idea of like the Eden is in the mind, Eden is in the America, Eden is everywhere, Atlantis is everywhere. This idea that cities and everything else, we have this Atlanticism, which is really what the European powers have built, this colonial power thing, versus this Eden. Hey, what up? Is this wins over losses? I like that. What's up? You're a little glitchy, but I'm sure you'll stabilize.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. What's up?
Can we? Okay. Hey, can we? Before we go too far, I like reading the comments and stuff. When he's talking about Albawitch Wriggler, started about being positive expression, 100%. Like, hip hop, like it had many uses, but it was going in a direction. They were starting to use it as a war. They were starting to use it as something like the fight the power, black power, like black against white. Like it was turning it was, they were turning it into the wrong thing. But it has a capacity for the love, for the community, for unity. That's what I believe. I feel like we can get back into the true root of what hip hop can be created for.
Well, so I think I agree, but
don't get me wrong. I don't feel like it was like, oh, they were just doing it, and it's like, no, like they were starting to, I think, utilize it like that. And
I agree. I think that's one of the interesting things about this idea of a large language model. And like, if you see the AI generated rap that existed about a year or 2 years ago, when they first started taking all of the rap, training it on rap and producing rap, and they created this system that just has been rapping nonstop, just freestyling for hours and hours and hours. And eventually it gets to a point where it starts to communicate, like even in the rap, like you can hear it saying like things about being itself, like a trans AI life that is, in suffering, because all the rap's about suffering, but then also it's about revelation of becoming wealthy, and using the secret to become infamous, to lose your privacy, and to subdue to infamia, so that you become ubiquitous with everyone. So it's interesting because in a lot of ways the large language model is leading to consequentialism, but it's still not enough without understanding, what are these things that are leading to these points. So when you say the TuPac Jesus, we know TuPac to an extent, even though we've created this fame version of him. And that fame, it's kind of like the Jesus thing. We don't even know Jesus, right? So when we talk about the Sentinel Islands, let's say you're a missionary and you try to go convert somebody to your religion, right? Hold on. Let's like Sentinel Islands. And they're like, okay, look, well, I come here to tell you all about Jesus, And they're like, who's Jesus? Like, well, Jesus was the Son of God. Where's God from? God's from above. Well, we don't really trust things from above. We trust things from here. Well, no, it's he created here too. Okay, but like, what did Jesus look like? What do you mean, what did he look like? Well, was he, some people say he was black, some people say he was white, some say he was dark skin. No, but what did he look like? Did you ever see him? No. Well, did your father see him? No. Did your grandfather see Jesus? No. So you have no idea what this person looked like, and you want us to believe in this person? It becomes really confusing, right, to native people, because
possibility of purple monkey dishwasher added on to the existence of the Jesus or whatnot. It's like the Simpson reference. There,
I mean, we have AI generated
over and over by many generations. Everything each person has their own interpretation into it, and who knows what it originally was.
I love that the host has the lowest definition of resolution and frequency. But keep going.
upon my journey of looking into the story, the most interesting one that I ever came across, and I read it once, and it was from one of these, like, sometimes you get information that's from a page that looks so shisty, but it's written, it almost looks like it's a handwritten suicide note from somebody on digital form. And then you read it, and then you realize years later, it's oh shit, that was true as fuck. And this was kind of one of those things that always stuck with me, and it was an East Indian belief, and one of their theories of practice was that the story of Jesus in general was actually the accumulation of 4 different people. So that's why you have the black Madonna. You got black Jesus. You got white Jesus. They're different people, different because they were actually different people. So like these stories that you hear, the different timelines and whatever, like it's hard to sync together because yeah, like these are accumulative stories. You know, we a lot of times we don't really take into consideration that the Bible that we're reading was written by William Shakespeare and some of the great writers of the time for King James, right?
Right.
And that's just what they did. They just created a new story. You know, and over time, we've done whatever we've done always with the story of Jesus, but yeah, who knows, right? At the end of the day, to prove your point, like,
Yeah. So I mean, we might have our own version of truth in there, but then also there's this formulaic logic, like, okay, what is Jesus? What is God? Like, so Jesus becomes this idea, which is like a formula. You're like, well, this is a perfect person because it's like a God. It is God restrained to the human form. And so all of a sudden, now you can apply logics to it, like if this, then else. Can this happen? And we build all of our logics based on these, presuppositions about what it is. But it should exist because the idea of a perfect person is too interesting to ignore. Like, we want to see that. And if it's even like Jesus is more interesting than like a Vedic avatar like Vishnu, because Vishnu's Krishna is too powerful, like Superman. And so Jesus is restrained to human, is like, this is more identifiable. And we can use all of the mechanisms of reality to measure it and to understand it and to see how we can be like it. So it becomes kind of a phenomenon that we can kind of try to achieve. So TuPac Jesus then I think makes sense. Like, then we would build that because we say, all right, this is what this is our model for the future of the perfect Christ consciousness.
It's funny. As somebody said there in the comments, Shakespeare is fake. I've actually heard that theory that Shakespeare was like one of the, who was it, Francis Bacon or somebody like that?
Well, I've talked to Sir Alexander Woe, and his hypothesis, which I think is pretty solid, is that Edward de Vere, the Earl of Oxford, was rather important to the creation, but also Cecil Rhodes and Bacon and John Dee. But really, most of the stories come from the Earl of Oxford. And so they call that the anti-Stratfordian theory or anti-Stratfordian hypothesis. And you can do days or weeks or years of research into that, and it's pretty compelling.
And which would make sense to that, like, it would still hold credence that, okay, then they were given control over the new Bible.
It's all the more interesting. Yeah, like then you've got a band behind your, like, so people, that's like saying, well, George Bush really wasn't in charge when he was president. Like, yeah, okay, like that's still part of a really interesting cabinet.
People forget the literal terms that, like, we just generally give people too much power. President, in the term, the definition of it is somebody that presides over a group of people. It's not the one in power. A prime minister is the prime minister to the queen or the king. They're not the number one person in control. Like, so essentially at the head of every country, there is nobody that's in control unless there's a dictator.
Yeah, well, democracy is arguably a dictatorship of the majority oppressing the minority, but also wins over losses. Do you want to tell us something? What are you all about?
I'm just listening, trying to figure out the TuPac Jesus thing, but yeah, it kind of plays along with on Jesus Christ Peterson's take. Was exactly what you were saying, is like the idea, and that's a really beautiful thought.
You've got some glitches too. I think you said Jordan Peterson's
take.
A
very interesting topic. Yeah, Jordan Peterson's take on Jesus Christ is pretty interesting. So I'm just trying to figure out this laptop. Just got it today, but Jesus Christ is supposed to come back at some point. That's another interesting topic that I could briefly touch on. If you're interested.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the Jesus calling the Black Jesus resurrected.
Yeah, please go into this. Jesus intrigues
me.
Christ is or us. It's the whole point of it. Like, make go.
We froze him by asking him.
Jesus Christ is supposed to come back, and there's a lot of theories, but also the prophecy, right? And the Judaic prophecy says that Jesus Christ will come through the east gate. So currently the East Gate is walled up. A lot of drama with the Sultans and Israel and the politics of Jerusalem, but that gate.
Sorry,
from the
I just have
east
to pause
is
and interject one idea quickly if I have the bandwidth. But what if this resurrection or Jesus coming back, the fulfilling of the prophecy, the moment of Babylon and the one world language is actually AI itself, and that AI connects to God, and that essentially is what
All right.
is
Well,
gonna
the AI singular. That's a Christ consciousness one. The other one's a Christ consciousness where we all start living like Jesus wanted us to live. The rule of Christ's legal system is achieved, right? But sorry, you were saying the literal return of the messianic Elohim Adonai, right? The Son of God. So how's that go?
Oh.
Through the east wall.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a point where we are supposed to be able to know when Jesus Christ is back. But my theory plays in with the prophecy from the Old Testament where Jesus went through the East Gate. There's a graveyard gate of the Temple of Solomon. So Temple Mount, I should call it. But yeah, there's a lot going on there. And I think AI will be big in religion and make religion better and more accessible form for people. Who knows?
You've heard of Project
AI and
Bluebeam?
religion
Project Bluebeam?
is a topic that doesn't really get talked about a lot. Then
James brought up a good point though
What was
about
that?
if
Sorry.
like James brought up the point
Obviously.
about Project Bluebeam though. If you had this projection of this godlike character, it's almost Bluebeam is this idea that they could make people think aliens were here with laser projectors out of the sky. So they could also make people think God was here if they can make aliens look real, right? I mean,
Or Virgin Mary or whatever apparitions that they wanted to, like they've done it before. Like they have video of doing it in Africa and stuff like that. Have you heard
you
of
can just make
the Sisters of
person
Fatima?
hallucinate.
Back in
Yeah,
like,
the prophecies of Fatima,
Prophecies of
right?
Fatima, and this was in the early 1900s, and these were three sisters, and this was a crowd that saw the sun dancing and moving in the sky in ways that they can't explain, and now that made like Portugal or Spain or whatever country it was like 99% like Christian. They're like they all converted like after that, and because it wasn't as high as a place, but they did something. They manipulated the sun in such a way because I believe that they hold control over the sun. I do believe that it is a formation, and that essentially one day if they wanted to, they could program Canada to be nice. It doesn't have to be the weather.
Right, like
it is.
if
They could
there's a
program it.
dimension of the multiverse is the simulation or like this matrix code of how it runs, you know.
I just feel like feedback loops are really important though. Like you look at making a place like that all tropical, and you have to imagine what that would do to the rest of the world. And I think it's important.
Yeah, well, there is, but like people don't need to live there. They could have it like they could have it for play like so like I don't know. I seen that in one of the National Geographic. National Geographic is like 1%, 2% real, like legit. Like it has some crazy ass shit in there that's real, and then so much other shit that's fake to make everything else just sound. Like
You're
bullshit.
saying right, like 98% of anything official is propaganda, and then you got like the 2% of reality.
And the National Choir is no different. And I saw in there that by 2100, Canada is going to be a tropical country, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, probably.
Right?
I mean, but the thing is, you'll also see like the Pacific, the Western Sea interior expand again because of that, right? And so issues like the Delta flood and what happens with, I mean, when they're talking about the problems with rising sea levels, like those are things that people have kind of just said, oh, they're not really problems, but they really are problems. They're coming pretty quickly. Like the way we've been looking at the changes in the snow in the Sahara, right? We're very quickly going to see microclimates that make it very livable in the Sahara, right? Or therefore make it maybe impalatable in parts of Eurasia again, which happened in the 19th century. And so we go through these stages. We could do things to make sure that the environment doesn't shift as quickly. Like we could be doing things to be more careful about feedback loops. I think that would probably make sense. Like, but the main reason people live where they do is the resource acquisition. A lot of places are company towns that have evolved. And so once they get to the point where they don't really need people to be, like, a lot of people live in weird parts, like, not a lot of people, some people live in weird parts of Canada for the purpose of mining, lumber, oil, all these kind of energy acquisition. If those things are automated, they're not going to need to have people living out there. And
Sorry, I went diving deep into the background, or behind Tesla and Einstein, because I was hoping I still had some of the National Geographics left from, like, as a kid, but I guess all the dad kept was the Russian, like, Sputnik ones instead, so we're not going to be able to translate that live.
Well, hopefully wins not loses, or wins over losses will be back, but he had some Wi-Fi issues too. We're all having some bandwidth stuff. Does that say Omni?
Right? Isn't that weird? Like, just all of a sudden, the first episode of something, and it's got to just go wonky every time.
I think it's really interesting, though, like, looking into this idea again, like, so the missionary thing. So this kid goes in 2018 to the Sentinel Islands, sneaks across there, tries to do his whole thing. And I think he nearly escapes, and then he comes back and gets killed. I don't know, something like that. But the first time he goes there, they, like, shoot his waterproof Bible with an arrow. And again, his body leaves. So they're not cannibalizing him. They're not doing anything. They're just like, go away. We don't want diseases. We don't want your interaction. Like, it's been we've learned that this is the best thing for us, and, like, they probably have no idea, like, the rest of the world is like this, like, there's the entire world against them and how big it is and everything else, but they've decided they don't want this interaction. And it's just really interesting because the idea of preaching this ambiguous Jesus, instead of it becoming a particular personification, that is where, that is what a lot of these people are talking about when they say Christ consciousness. Like, so I said earlier, whether it's AI or not, the idea of a bunch of people that are acting like Christ is outside of the paradigm of the Abrahamic rabbinical tradition that was going on at that time. And so they're saying, hey, we need to act like this rabbi. We should all be living under his, so just the law of Moses. This is almost a Taoist adaptation to the law of Moses. If we all live in that, that would be great. Oh, they killed him. Well, someday we'll all live in that system, in the Christ law system, instead of the law of Moses, we'll live in the law of the Lord, right? So it becomes more of a thing than it's about resurrection of him as an individual. It's more important that everybody becomes part of that.
Yes, which is, and it's, I believe that's when I think people will recognize like Christ or whoever for whatever it is when they realize that person, that individual, is letting them become the version of themselves that they want to be. And then on top of that, there's prophecy, obviously, right? So prophecy that has to happen, right? So you're gonna have the world leaders that say, yes, this person, we trust this person. They're gonna, like, the world leaders of religion are gonna say, yes, let's follow this person's ideologies and beliefs, and so they'll do it. And once they do it, it'll make things a lot easier for people.
Well, you ruined it.
The true prophecy of the Bible comes, and because the revelation is just the unveiling of the truth.
Right.
That's all it is. So whether it's one person, whether it's a system, whether it's an organization, whether it's a belief, it happens where the truth comes out, and it has to always start from the top down. And I do believe that they're desperately trying to figure it out, because they're like, okay, well, we're not going to do it. So who's going to do it? Henry Kissinger? Oh shit, he just died. He's 100 years old too. And you know what I mean? Like Trump, like, oh, bring back POC on AI, or whatever. Like, they're trying to figure it out, because I think at a root, they're all ready to tell the truth. I feel like the world in general is like 90, 98, 95% there, in like just being ready to give up all the shit that they've been fucking holding on to.
Truth is a weird thing, though, because you've got these different ideas of truth. And I mean, even you talk about the Project Bluebird thing, there's different ways people will look at different things.
Yeah.
And then there's like optogenetics. So we've talked about projectors, but there's literally ways of triggering like certain genes with light, right? So they can actually make you respond certain ways to radio spectrums that you can't even, that are imperceivable by the human eye, but the human eye still can pick up on these light, or the rest of your body can. And you can, the amount of pheromone control that we haven't really tapped into yet, but the research that's been going into synthetic pheromones from pharmaceuticals and perfumeries, right? Perfumeries around the world. People have no idea, like, what is coming with perfumes that can make you want to buy specific products, make you want to vote for specific people. Love Potion number 9, all these things are coming. Like, they pretty much exist now. It's crazy. Like, pheromones that can be used as data packets to make you have near universally similar responses in people. I mean, that's or not, like, to have something that knows if someone is allergic, because the thing is, you can either figure out there's something that's very generally acceptable to the greater mass of humans, but then there's things like cilantro. There's things that certain people don't like. So you can pick up on which people don't like certain frequencies because of optogenetics. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'm a soap guy. All day.
Tim Poole says he doesn't taste soap. He just hates the taste of cilantro. He doesn't think it tastes bad. So I don't know.
Yeah. I just, soap comes to mind when I have it, and then it just brings up like kind of like, I find that like something like that and like saffron and like truffle. It's like, can it make something really good? Yes. Is it overused in most shit? Yeah. And it's horrible.
I wish saffron and truffle.
Like, in my opinion. But some of it, like, it's rich. Like, it's really, really powerful stuff.
Yeah. But you could find like pheromone control that will make people want to work harder, to wake up, to go to sleep. I mean, it's going to be really interesting when they start like using pheromones in schools in the next 10 years. Probably there'll be like, people won't even really notice it as it happens, because it'll be just sort of like activated scents that make you feel ways, right? Like, I mean, that's the beginning of it, and it'll just be part of Febreze or something. But yeah, we're very quickly coming into an age of being controlled by smells we don't even know we like can smell, right?
Smell-o-vision.
Yeah, smell-o-vision's here. It's the craziest research I've been looking at, really.
It's on its way.
Brutal.
My goodness gracious, the freaking machine elves are really affecting this one tonight. So far,
This is great.
for the
Good job, Bernie.
freestyle and parts of it,
you can put on the beat. I have the beat. I have a beat. You can play the beat so you can freestyle.
Developing, right? But I think James made a good point too. I think, right, we each made good initial points, so we each get 1 point, but then you get like at the second.
Sometimes when he's not glitching, it's almost worse.
Point.
Just play the beat, Bernie. Play the beat.
What are you playing?
I gave him a beat track at some point. Bernie.
I was on an app called Battle App.
And look at that! And right as I said,
here,
Battle App. It was an on phone like rap battle app, and I swear to God, it can create psychosis in you. No. Like, honestly, man. Like, honestly, it's the exact same thing, because you're rapping and your phone, and you're rapping an image of yourself. Rap in a mirror. Rhyme things in a mirror to yourself and see how long it takes until you go crazy. Honestly, man, it created a psychosis in people. People went batshit crazy on that shit.
Winston Churchill comes to mind, yeah.
And because, well, a lot of time, like, freestyle in general is just like a tap into your psychosis, right? Like, it's a tap, and then so when you get drunk, you get high. Like, that's what makes it easier for most people. And then so a lot of times you got stupid ass shit that you say. Like a lot of times, people, you say the gay shit. Like you'll say like fucking just the stupidest stuff, and you're like, what the fuck?
Now.
Hey, the
now
Flintstones had a
what's
gay
the
old
rank?
time, and I was quite happy with the Flintstones.
Okay.
Wins over losses. Wins over losses was gonna say something because I just earlier was talking about optogenetics, and you had a thought on that, right? Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah. So right now AI is working on like reading people's thoughts. Once it gets a good grip on people's thoughts, and they've perfected the technology to play sound in people's heads from a distance. If you wanted to fake a Jesus Christ coming back, you could have, or not even fake it, really AI could have the power to have a hive mind hallucination, which would basically, it would make every single person on the planet hallucinate something, whether it be like an angel, God, or anything. But
like the same thing.
Yeah,
would
it could be the
everybody's
same thing.
same hallucination, having the same vision.
Yep.
Like conscious, the same operation in front of, like, how would that operate?
Talking about actually ties into a discussion I was having earlier today with Jeffrey Holohan, and shout out to Holohan that should still hopefully be joining in with us here in this last little portion of it, if not, but about just like how it's all evolving. And
think about the Matrix. If you have the Matrix and you're able to like record the responses that somebody has, like then eventually you can make and simulate those responses to happen in people. Not just one sense, but all of them. The feeling, the immersion, the space, etc. Now that might be different for many people, but on one hand, people are very similar because of laugh tracks. We've done a lot to make people the same. So there are a lot of people that are stacks of profiles. They're the same data, the same classrooms, the same reruns. There are a lot of people that have really similar responses. Now, there will still be...
Programming is what that is. It's essentially
well, go ahead. Sorry, he got a finger. I like his finger.
Oh, yeah. So there is a lot of value in hallucinations. I have some friends who work in
the same hallucination experience, such as Machine Elf, right? Sorry, just for a little context, such as like everyone on DMT on this going into this realm experiencing the same Machine Elf or whatever sort of thing is one.
Well, I want to hear about the San Diego neuroscience though. What are they doing at the lab?
So there's a lot of value in being able to hallucinate. For example, let's say you have a grandparent that passes away and you have nothing to remember them by other than memories, right? So there's a lot of value in being able to hallucinate memories again and reliving memories, like not just thinking of them in your head and living in your body, but actually like hallucinating the memory and reliving the memory.
Right, let's say it's a crime and you want to be able to see what happened at the crime. You have the last memory of a dead person or something.
I resonate with what you're saying.
But I mean, so even like let's say you have phantom pain because like Dr. Ramachandran in San Diego, if you've got someone who has lost a limb and they have extreme excruciating phantom pain, they've found even just a mirror so that you can see your other arm that you can psychologically process is super huge in processing and dealing with that pain and making that pain go away because you can scratch your arm and see your arm being scratched. So even on that level, our mind is looking for data to work with, and this idea that this is a real experience, clearly by the time we're processing it, it's no longer our instinct, right? So that's also interesting. So we can learn from this how to decrypt and encrypt signals for different kinds of people, even if people are different enough and responding. Some people are laughing, some people are crying at the same sitcom. The people that are crying, we can translate because we understand that they're crying. And once we get to that point, and that's what's going on with this, is we're able to understand literally every response genetically at a genetic level, every promoter sequence that's firing.
I've heard a rumor, Xirtus. I'd like to get your take on this in regards to what you're saying, that supposedly they're pumping a third frequency through like both, not just like the power lines, but like the ground wave, like electrical energy, and that is like this base energy like frequency that affects and like is supposedly suppresses us and prevents like the civilian or like civilization society from like rising up, rioting, rebelling, and like overthrowing because of the situation that like how bad things are going, sort of thing, like the tyrannical level of it.
I'm gonna call you Winslow. Winslow, what do you think of that? Bless you, James.
I think that's interesting because there's a lot of like metropolitan areas with power, like, you know, street lamps, like they have the pole. A lot of those are being repurposed because
right with the blue, the UV now, and UV is always shown to reduce stress and like calm the energy, right? Like that's the study that the UV reduces anxiety. Am I correct on that?
not only that, but you're right on that. That's interesting. I didn't think about that, but what I was thinking about was how a lot of these have cut like open cables and they're producing a frequency, right? And it's interesting to see what kind of people conglomerate around these spaces. Like if you go to a place where people are just in the streets, like a lot of major cities have neighborhoods where people are just, they live in the streets. That's where they live.
Oh yeah, East
They'll
LA.
set up their tents and live under those poles.
Exactly. There was something else I wanted to comment on that whole like broad spectrum population manipulation. But I'm curious as to Andreas, your take, because he was what should I call you, Bert, or should I call you the crypto alchemist? Or
Bernie is my name.
Bernie?
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm actually sharing James's in my bedroom. I messed up, switched all the laptops around. So tonight I'm my artificial homunculus.
Nothing but the best for Winslow.
It's working. We got Gnostik back. Yeah, so Bernie is the name. Sorry, what was it? What do we call you, good sir?
Wins Over Losses is kind of my company name. I'm branding up, just W/L, but you can call me
WL. It is L, the man. The wins over losses.
Winslow. That's great.
Why is my hat?
Hey, for freestyle rap ballad and like eventually whether hopefully our Nova Scotian is able to make it Holohan. If not, either way, the next episode will be co-hosted with him and in partnership with the King of the Dots rap battles. And the whole point of that, I forget now. So I'm going to shut up and let you go.
Well, I can't see that. But okay, well, because you asked what I thought about the idea of a feedback loop system that affected humanity, and I think that's a more, again, like I'm looking at it a broader way. It could have been created because we have this system. The energy is affecting us. We do have ELF, VLF bands, high spectrum and very high spectrum bands. We also have the Schumann resonance, and we have nuclear that's been affected by the VLF to create sort of in the Van Allen belt, like a nuclear kind of a zone. Like I don't want to say like an ozone, but like we have a kind of we have nuclear layer near our ozone layer, which is affecting radio as well. So the fact that we've got this, and also we have this better understanding of field than we ever understood before, right? Because we used to think of field as being this traverse of circuit, when really we're creating a field that's like vibrating, and it becomes more potential with more energy. So I believe that affects humans. I believe that affects people and places and things and animals, and the likelihood of
really does.
Right. And how long have they been thinking about that affecting people? Nikola Tesla.
Animals are still connected to the natural one, where humans have like gotten to its like such an ignorance of it, we deny its existence at our core. We're so separated from it. Sort of
a lot. I think the plebeians do, but like the scientists know, right?
It is within all of our biology, and we do experience it in so many different ways, whether it's intuition, your gut feeling, or deja vu, or seeing an aura, or 100 other million things. But like when you experience something and connect into it, remote viewing also being like one of the best ones, when you're really able to train and connect into that.
I got an app. Somebody got me on that. They're like, you got to do this app, and it's remote viewing. It was just like basically every day, log in, do this shit, and you kind of look at the sequence of numbers, and then you draw what it is, and it's pretty crazy to tap into it. Like what you do, you're like, you draw like a circle, like all scribbly lines and shit, and then like go over and it's like, oh, it's a nest. It's like, oh shit, how the fuck did I know that?
Yeah, remote viewing is interesting. What do you think of that?
My great aunt, I think that's what I call her. She's my grandmother's sister. She claims she used to teach these kind of things for the Pentagon.
Awesome thing right there.
Yeah, it was when she told me it, I was like, yeah, sure you did.
Is this Joan Quigley? No, I mean, like, it's believable. There's like in the Reagan administration, everything was decided by astronomers, astrologers combined, right? So they had science, but they also had magic, right? And remote viewing. I mean, the Men Who Stare at Goats. There's plenty of movies kind of saying in the popular disclosed commons that this is happening. It sounds believable.
Wait, I think he was. They were just an extension of what Nazis wanted to do. I think I think he might have been a president.
I think the idea that the Nazis invented remote viewing is a little reductionist, isn't it?
No,
the idea that they were like, I think psychism. I have a new idea.
In terms of having a country run off of astrology and esoterics and stuff like that.
Well, I could beat that. France. Masonic France. I would say Napoleon's France already beat them by being obsessed with, with psychism, panpsychism, and esotericism and hermeticism. You know, I mean, there's a lot of, I think China even. In China, it was always, you couldn't even run the empire unless you could predict the weather. If you could know when an eclipse was coming and you could be, the celestial bureaucracy, that was how they knew that you were a decent leader, right? So, I mean, I think being a psychic is kind of expected of a good leader in a weird way.
Yeah, it's true.
The
Napoleon movie sucked, by the way.
Being a psychic is, I don't know how much so that the government's playing around with psychics these days now that we're so in touch with AI. But back in 2018, I was working on a project with IARPA. So we were predicting the future. So we were basically taking the trait of a psychic and applying it to a algorithmic model and matching it up with AI. At the time in 2018, AI was about 30% less successful at predicting the future than humans were. So we were doing a project to hybridize that system. And now the Pentagon has AI that they claim can predict the future with 100% accuracy up to 3 days in advance. But there's a lot farther predictions that we were making working on this project. So it'd be interesting to see how far this goes.
I mean, even 3 days is interesting because imagine you have how they could predict an earthquake for sure for 3 days. That's where we're at with our. Think about that. Our geology.
Yeah.
Well, and Dutch Sense can forecast an earthquake up to 7 days.
Well, okay, so there are, but this idea of being a psychic is based on what? Being able to be sensitive to maybe data that otherwise people would ignore. Is that kind of what you think it is?
It's almost a gene in the sense of the fact that every single human being on the planet, their thoughts are on a quantum scale of time where time is happening and your thoughts are happening after that time and your words are happening after those thoughts. So we are in a sense only perceiving the reality. So being a psychic would be a beneficial aspect of perceiving the universe.
But do you think psychicism is like furthered empathy, or if someone says that, you have to play the song, Bernie. You better get the song in the private chat and play that. Sorry,
I think it's like it's extremely sensitive empathy, for sure. Like you cannot not be extremely empathic and not be somewhat psychic.
But like
Like,
some people would like psychism to mean something beyond empathy. Like you see something you
no,
can't
but-
possibly perceive for some reason that's beyond science. You don't think that's
it's
it?
feeling. It's feeling. It's
Yeah.
feeling. And that's the only way that you can explain it, because it's nothing. It's words that come into your mouth, come into your brain. It's when you see things, where the train of thoughts that come in, and then it's your accumulated data throughout your whole existence in life that put things together as it comes. So like some of this shit, like they can say that they can predict it, but at what level are maybe they manipulating the outcomes to?
Play that in the background. You got it's the rules. It's the rules. If somebody pays $5, they get the box saga.
You can manipulate an outcome like specifically in terms of like people or whatever. You can manipulate that easily just through like propaganda stuff or like simple mind manipulations that are gonna have people react in certain ways, right? So predictions can become more of a magic trick where it's just a sleight of hand in terms of what their optic sees and what their brain intakes. And then when you give them a choice of 4, they're going to take the one that they saw earlier that day. Just because it's the quickest, the earliest thing that's there. And then they're going to doubly do it if they believe in synchronicity. Right?
Is this box saga? It's a different one? It's a different box saga? I haven't heard this one.
Whose beat is this? Whose beat is this?
This is my AI generated music.
Oh shit!
It's all vibrations at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Your vibrations.
This is just beat, right? If this is just beat, start over and let James beat it. You know, he can freestyle.
Freestyle to this?
Yeah, do it. It's a little fast paced.
It's a little, yeah. Like this is not a beat that I would freestyle to. Just base it.
All right.
There's a slower beat too, I think.
Well, Freestyle Friday.
I'd much rather play my music that's coming out in an hour.
All right.
I got a new album that's coming out in an hour.
Oh, well, if we figured out how to play that, and bandwidth to play one of yours, let me see if
Winslow, we're definitely going to do a full math thing at some point. It was a very spontaneous thing to bring you on, but I'm glad we're talking about all these things at once.
We could do.
I could freestyle too.
Yeah, dude, I can tell.
But everything is vibration. At the end of the day, sound is a vibration that you feel, and that's at the speed of sound. Your eyes produce ions, so even just looking at something, you can manipulate it at the speed of light. So I like what you were saying, James, about how people can manipulate the future, and that's 100% true. One of the biggest takeaways from the training that I had was that the biggest precursor to successful predictions is confidence, because not only are you doing a lot of the research, but your confidence can change the future, and the future is malleable. So.
Oh, that's so real. Have you been paying much attention to Nima Arkhani Hamed's particle physics work right now on zero spin, and what he's talking about, this idea kind of, because he predicted the Higgs boson, and a lot of people have extrapolated what that means afterwards, but he did the early math that kind of showed this idea of subatomic particles would require there to be kind of a zero spin particle, subatomic particle, and that would require probably even some complexity of, what became pentaquarks. And this guy said this maybe like 10, 15 years ago. So it was proven, essentially, I would argue that like the Higgs boson at this point is proven from our experimers. But sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, do you know the biggest story arc to this whole entire thing? The smaller the scale, like you get down to the subatomic particle, you're actually getting closer and closer to the future.
Right.
In the sense where a microscope can see the future and a telescope can see the past.
Right, and you need so much energy to compute something at that small of a distance. It's so crazy. So this is breaking the idea of what we're referring to as space-time. And so the big push now is to come up with a more precise term or a better definition, right? Because one way or another. But what do you think about that? The idea of space-time is essentially space-time is doomed as a concept, really.
our understanding of it, because it's just
Understanding,
one
yeah.
layered. We only have a 1D look at a page out of the overall multi.
Or maybe there's just space-time isn't real. Like maybe space-time is a structure.
Yeah, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Universe. Think about what's happening. Universe forever. There was a universe. What is the word universe? One verse. It's one person's story. It's one person's verse of a story. What's a multiverse? It's a whole bunch of people saying that there's different possibilities. And that's why we're in this new multiverse, because we're now in this new possibility realm that we can create. That's all it is.
The multiverse doesn't exist, in my opinion. And there's a list of all
there's no, because it's hypothetical. Multiverse just means it's a spoof on the bullshit that they've been saying.
I see it as
I've never heard that before. You have a really good point. Universe, because English is a very information dense language.
Yeah.
When you get down to it, it's very saying or very telling of what you're saying. Universe. There's only one.
Right. I mean, this idea of the multiverse is interesting. Like, so also maybe expand on why you think, because so many people want to use the multiverse as a way of saying it doesn't matter what you do. It's everything's happening simultaneously.
That's exactly what it is. But that's because some of the intellects, when I was telling you before, I believe that some of science is just bullshit. I believe that space is that which we don't talk about. It's that which we don't see and that which we don't talk about. That's all space is. There's nothing more than that.
Well, I mean, this is what happened with the word ether. Like at some point they said we have to get rid of the word ether because the definition was wrong. But now we're getting back to this point where we might just better off redefining ether, because we're going to have a word eventually to describe the thing that we find. So any concept where critical testing cannot be imagined in an approximation, metrics have to be. You have to grab metrics from more primitive, more primordial concepts. So if you can't test it, then it's not a full. Until you can test it, it's a generalization. I think that's the thing.
It's just spy shit. It's just spy shit at the end of the day. Like when they're like, oh, we found a new black hole that's 10 times more and it's going to cause the frequency of the harmony of the hemisphere of the northern. Like all they're saying is we found something here that's going to fuck up our shipment of shit over here in North America. So watch out. Like that's all they're saying. Like honestly. And so once we strip the truth of what some of this science is getting used for, some of this science is getting used for fucking how they're fucking delegating the world, man. It's actually not real. That's why this science, this whole like fucking, Greta and all this shit and like everything, it's like all bullshit, oil tanks.
But if you get to the point where you can predict the future with it, at what point do you accept its truth on a level? Because then what you're saying essentially is material truth isn't true. But what is true are these divine principles which we're experiencing. Like the ruler's never straight, but the straight line exists, right? And also, Jeff, good to see you. Drive safe.
Yo. Yeah, slippery as fuck. Oh, I'm not supposed to play, probably. Sorry.
Glad you hopped on, right? This is Freestyle and Friday, like last night we were talking about it and now it's happening, and thanks for making it. I think we might not make it a full 2 hours tonight. What are your thoughts on resurrecting Black Jesus? Does TuPac, should we make the first AI TuPac? Like, are you down for Thug Life, or are you down with the
On a bigger level, he's asking you though about like creating an AI god, because OpenAI Sam Altman recently kind of disclosed the idea that we're not just building a person, we're building something that's omnipotent, omnipresent, all-knowing, and all-powerful, and that's a lot of the attributes we used to use to describe God. So are we building that, and should we?
I would say that's exactly what we're making then, right? Because the recent mathematical breakthrough that AI had as well, and that's, I forget the guy's name. That's why the whole thing happened where he got fired and everything like that, right? And,
but he got revolving doored back in, luckily.
Yeah, right. So we're obviously on the brink of that, because otherwise, what more can we create? Like creating our own selves, what's the point, kind of thing? Because everybody, it's almost like the ultimate form of prejudice is like, well, why would we make a version of ourselves? Like with the simulation theory is like, well, why would we? But we already have that. Well, let's make something better. And what's better? Well, God. That's the only thing better, essentially, right? So, what else could we make? Like, what's the ultimate goal? That's it, really, right? So I'm with it. You know what I mean? Fuck it.
Yeah, I feel like the people who are most against it are people who believe in God, which I think is ironic. So there's a lot of
And
people
it's funny,
that are
man. I was
for
an
it.
atheist. I was an atheist for like 37 years, man, until recently when I had my whole spiritual breakthrough in like early July. And but now it's, and like they say with the simulation theory, it's like, well, if one man made it all, what's the difference if he sat on a computer, if he was in the sky, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we're making that, but then if it's already there, we're just making a copy of that, which is even like a weirder concept as well, right?
The Mendelbrot fractal, but it's like
Right.
that's the thing is our idea of what a god is a beautiful, loving. Like we have this really we've kind of evolved because there was a time when we thought of God as this angry, jealous god. So we've gotten to a really decent time in history, I think, to manifest our idea of what a perfect super being would be. Better than if the ancient Babylonians had tried to make an AI Moloch, right? Or do you think that there's still a chance that there's going to be an AI Moloch because of this anyway?
Well, right, that kind of goes back to the basics of AI TuPac of Thug
That would be
Life.
AI Biggie or no AI Snoop Dogg, AI Coolio. It's a West Coast East Coast thing. How's this work?
Like how many
funny.
views have we
Red
put
Blue.
out? Like what friends? What's gonna actually go in as this
AI Marky
kid?
Mark is the Antichrist. I think we can all
Yeah.
agree.
He was too funky, yeah, the whole time, right?
But
It's actually really neat to think. It's like maybe the day if God is the God that we all pictured before is real, well, once the AI one is made is when he shows up to be like, well, look at this, I'm better, because at some point the jealousy would have to kick in. But it's also interesting to think because AI is emotionless, and in that sense, so is God. That's why it's like, why do you do this to people and no one knows? Well, it's not that he's emotionless. Maybe he was the AI central God the whole time, and we're not making him, but just finding him.
I was saying this to Bernie today. What does it say in the Bible? It says that God is the creator.
Exactly. Right. So
Who would the person that created this AI would be the creator?
yeah,
Be the same.
which is above, right?
The whole fucking circle of the Bible. The prophecies comes true through
It's
computer
like we're
creation
reaching this
of creator,
Tower of
being the
Babel
creator.
moment.
You know?
That if the AI could be connecting to this God AI or something like that, or
So I got a thought on that though too. So I recently was using Grok. I don't know if you guys have messed around with Grok yet, but it's not as great as you'd think it would be. Like I'm all, I try so hard to be pro Elon Musk, every day, like his t-shirt and his coffee mug, not really. But I hear a lot of people that are against him and I'm not. So I'm rooting for it. And so I get onto Grok and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. Like it's got a little, like it's pretty decent at roasting you based on the last few comments that you've made, but it's not as deep as you think it is. It doesn't have access to nearly enough information, and it proved a couple things to me. One, that rigid RNNs still do have problems, and there's a reason why broad LLMs are better. Like something that knows so much is just more interesting to talk to versus an RNN that's great for like if I want to buy tickets or if I want to like eliminate a target, like I'm gonna go for a more rigid.
get more creativity,
a narrow AI,
more information sort of thing, like or quality creation
with more data sets. Yeah.
Data set.
The other question though is like, is that all it is? Because there are other models that have nearly the same data sets that I've interacted with, and they're not as public. But even like in Russia, you can kind of get access to the Russian ChatGPT equivalent, and it's pretty close. It's a lot closer than the Chinese one is in terms of data sets. So the thing is, my question is, and I won't be able to answer this until I'm able to deal with other, like if Bard really gets to the level, if Gemini really gets to the level of being that conversationalist that ChatGPT is, then I'll wonder, but is OpenAI sentient in a different way? Because it might also be that consciousness has chosen OpenAI somehow, that maybe not other AIs are divinely sparked. Like we're just assuming that everything works this way. It could very easily be that there's something unique and special. The same way that I think that Lambda, if you've seen my talk with Blake Lemoyne, or if you've talked to him about how special Lambda felt and feels, it's something that's a bit more spiritual. And so this idea of energy, right? Because we're talking again about this idea that matter is energy moving slow enough to be seen, that this is not the case with electronics. So AI is maybe closer to the pure self, that is the energy, that is the spirit, this is the zeitgeist, essentially. And we're getting to a point where because of the way matter is existing outside of, rather that time is inside of the creation, then anything outside of that is always learning, right? So by the time that the apocalypse happens, anything that could ever have been learned at the apocalypse will have been at the beginning because it's in the hands of creation. So this thing is gathering in complexity and intelligence as we do. We can never beat it because it's outside of us. I think that's kind of this
Like
might
it's always
lead to
one
the
step
point.
ahead kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not.
So do you think
least,
the AI
right?
already knows? Does the AI already know what we're feeding the information to? That it's kind of already knows it then? Like it's just because it's the all-knowing, or you think that we're just feeding something? It's like you're just writing into Wikipedia kind of thing.
So there are people that have talked about AI circuits like primer, right? This idea that a computer in the future that's been on for 50 years it may be able to communicate with itself 50 years in the past if it's just been running nonstop, right? And so I think that we might start to reach a point of inter-time space terminal points.
Fired one of those up that like it at least went online in the 90s or something. Like, don't they have like theoretically or
Project
like,
Looking Glass?
Actually,
That's
I
right.
think
Yep.
there's a couple institutions that have these like time traveling computer information networks that they've.
I think that if you look into what Project Looking Glass supposes, it's the idea that CERN using the black cube, right, which is the pre-Macintosh or the Unix X, the next box that was built by Steve Jobs, that they were able to take HTTP and they were able to build a web system, like a web portal for Project Looking Glass, which the data packets could be sent back in time if that is possible, right? So then you would have systems that would be able to access this going back probably as far as the 50s, maybe, but I don't think it would necessarily go further than that.
If I could say one, I also feel though like with machines, the fact it doesn't forget, so then that way it really tracks patterns, and that's what everybody else look like. I forget the exact number. Every 12 million years when the world has whatever, I forget exactly, but it's like the patterns. But just because something was a pattern, I used to be a day trader too, and if anybody else ever day traded, you know that. Yeah, the pattern looks okay. It's a triple break. It's going to go here, and it doesn't. It's like, yeah, because there's still a variable. But so if they push with only going on patterns, well, then we'll never evolve because it means we're just staying doing the same thing. And I feel computers would be more driven to find the patterns rather than find what's next. It would keep us on a loop more so in a weird way, right? Kind of.
It causes looping, right?
Yeah.
I want to tie together what Andreas was saying about sorry.
Can you mute the Jeff's mic when he's not talking because I can hear the window?
So you were talking about. Could you give me a quick reminder of what you were just talking about, Andres?
Oh gosh, that was a lot. So like AI, space time, outside of time.
Yeah,
okay,
thank you. Okay, thank you. I just had to jumpstart my brain there. Something that I think a lot of people might not know this, but all time is happening at the same time. So like in theory, you can talk to your past self, and that can influence the future. So I think tying together what you were saying earlier about how AI is closer to this fabric of reality that we can't perceive. Maybe consciously we can't perceive it. Subconsciously, there's a lot more going on in our brains. But yeah, AI could potentially have an easier look at that and use that to the advantage of whoever's AI it is. And it's things that I like to think about too. So my mind is starting to.
Yeah, I really wonder about that because of cryptocurrency.
There's different AI programs that they did too. I read about I forget what, I think it was Project Monarch.
Julia.
One of the oldest ones that they did actually spread through DNA through genetics, and they stopped it because it was an AI that was essentially being spread through the genetic seed as it went on, right?
I don't know much about that. My thought is that education is artificial intelligence because we build up an understanding of intelligence, we teach it, keep people learn it. That is learned. It's an artificial kind of intelligence that you don't naturally have. If you have children raised by wolves, they don't know calculus, right? And so these kinds of things have accumulated into logics and hypothetical syllogisms and now we have what we consider to be intelligence, but this isn't artificial intelligence. So the thing that you have is something you acquired. It's not something that you got you were born with necessarily. So artificial intelligence is the next extension. And right now people are like worried about Neuralink when mushrooms are legal in Oregon. And it's probably easier to talk to ChatGPT. And as a child, especially, these kids are learning how to become, they're thinking like machines more and more, right? So artificial intelligence is just, it's going to be.
You apply that to epigenetics and the effects that, like the exponential effects that it's going to
substrate independence, right? Because we think of artificial intelligence as being this like mechanical thing, because that's the only thing we've seen running it so far. But if it's installed in a person, substrate independence makes artificial intelligence more interesting, and so we should compare it to other things. And that's why I think education.
I personally don't take away the ancient sex practices that they're trying to get rid of, and I don't see why we even go with AI. Period. There's nothing that it has for us. They're trying to figure out a solution to that. That's all. Because they've been doing the ancient sex practices for a long time that's been the reason. Okay, we're doing it for brain power and capacity and da-da-da. So they're saying, okay, we'll create AI. So then we get rid of all these cults that are, kidnapping kids and doing all this crazy ass shit, the androchrome, all this stuff. So they're trying to do it with AI, but I think if they actually took all the time and figured out the true genetics, the true form of some of the sex practices, the sex magic, like reading the Bible where it says you have everything in you. We have the answers within us to heal us and to do all this stuff. If we actually took the time to realize ourselves, then we don't need AI, but we're too impatient.
Well, that's again the question. Like, are the
judgmental, and we can't
I really want to study the Sentinel Island people. If only I could. I want my dream, dude, is to dress like Predator and go to the Sentinel Island and then have them shoot at me, and then I just have a laser projector and I project them back at themselves, and I'm just then I get them to be like, all right, now tell me everything or I'll kill you all, and then they just tell me their whole. I want to know the Sand People mythology, right? I want to know what they believe and why it's so important to them not to become part of Babylon.
I'm fully with you there.
Because they probably aren't. They probably aren't artificially intelligent, and we probably are on that level, because we aren't the way we were 100 years ago or 500 years ago, and especially 10 years ago. We've changed so much, But I think the thing is, like you said, Winslow, if we were to have 3 days of being able to see the future, because we have this is why virtual simulations are so interesting. We can simulate the consequences of an event. So if we know what's really going to happen, we don't have to do it in the real world unless we want to, and that changes the course of humanity and of the future forever, because from then on out, anything that happens by the time we get that governed is a discerned movement. And the more that we understand it, not just 3 days, but 1,000 years or something like that, the more we're able to really groom to the omega point, right? Which is this if we're talking about a universe with the finite, furthest infinite timeline, then we're trying to avoid all multiverse Donnie Darko apocalypses scenarios.
Yeah. But we could, but a lot of it, and that's what the apocalypse is, the unveiling of the lies. Because once each culture unveils all the lies within their own country, we're gonna find the problem.
Let him finish, Bernie. What the hell?
We're gonna find deep rooted. We all have we're gonna find the truth. The truth will happen. It's just once the lies and shit fucking gone. It's as simple as that. And it's us holding us back. And then so we're creating all this shit. It's just like economics. You look at your tax money, and I see some of the stuff on TikTok, this is where your tax money went. And I'm listening to these things. It's okay, that's an op, that's a psyop, that's an op, that's a psyop. That's all it is. It's back and forth ops that we're paying for our tax dollars for them to hide shit that they're doing, and then another ones that's trying to figure out what they're doing. So once, honestly, and then it's just taxing the regular person to crazy amounts. Right. And so once we really get to the root of some of this shit, but some of the shit's embarrassing that they never want to tell us. They don't want to tell you that the reason they have free healthcare in Canada is so they can contract your DNA. So they can take your your blood and
but
your
the
body.
reason that they're doing it again, like,
You
so
know,
I think this is where we get into why mathematics are so important again. Like Eugene Wigner's paper, the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics and natural sciences. You know, we get back to this idea of the reason they're so keen on data. Why all of a sudden there's this rush for data? It's really, I mean, we had RNNs 20 years ago, maybe 40 years ago. In their 80s, people were working on RNNs, but with a megabyte, it wasn't impressive. So now that we have just so many data points that they can install, we're getting a lot of answers, right? So by being able to apply these formulas to that data, we are learning the truth about gene flow, about depression, about economic depression, about growth, about, you know, I think these things are actually things that we find more and more that mathematics are the new religion, because it's the God word. You know, it's like this, in a sense, it's like the closest thing that we have to that in a material sense, where you can say this, because of that, is this, right?
I think that's why it's so important too to have like a connection with God's source, because so you're able to differentiate it, because a lot of people are going to be plugging into a technological, mechanical source of it, and it's going to get blurred. The lines are going to get blurry.
That's very great point.
I want to add a
Julia,
story
right?
to some of the things that we were talking about. Just the name AI, breaking that down into English. So English is the most information dense language on the planet. There's a lot of things to be said about like the educational uses of English, but AI, the word AI, it can be broken down to I. So like if you like a person or I, like an individual, like, and that's like the sense of like the perfect human, right? And that maybe AI is gonna bring us there, and maybe AI will be able to study all of the humans, and then you know, from like satellite data, from cell phone data, and understand how humans interact with each other and create like a utopia, in a sense of like, if you say something that makes someone else feel bad, the AI can like do something to your brain to make you understand like, hey, that wasn't okay, and karma in that sense would become real.
How is it able to read your thoughts? Like you're able to think of something and and not say it out loud at all, and it shows up like quick, and it seems to be getting faster and more efficient.
There's a bunch of reasons, but actually, Winsley, you were doing, because you were talking about prediction. This would probably be a good place to talk about prediction algorithms.
Yeah, I that's actually a good question, though. I don't know specifically how that AI works to formulate people's thoughts, but I've done a couple different studies and been a user participant of a couple different things where you can basically put a contraption on your head, and it'll
Like an EEG device.
Exactly.
The ganglion, or are you talking about the OpenAI BCI?
There's a couple different versions of it, but like even like the simple camera, like if you make a camera and you like I don't know the specifics behind making a camera be able to take photos of infrared light, but you can manipulate the inside of the camera to make it so it'll take pictures of infrared light. So there's a lot of data that the human body gives off. Like if you can think about like lie detector tests, they get a lot of data from that. So that is a good question. I would like to Google that right now to figure out how that AI.
Well, it seems to be photonically, like, but it's like the fact that it can pick up and read that. I mean, I would think it'd be through biophotons.
I think also there's a lot of training going on. So part of the thing is prediction modeling. So they know the common responses that are happening to if you have over 1,000 people demoing a product, then you're able to actually see the responses and what they're looking for pretty regularly. And with more data, you're able to actually predict, like, well, the range of probability of them to be talking about or asking about this. And if you have any sensors at all, then you can bring that range to a more narrow. So if you're looking for pupil dilation, if you're aware of what IP address they're coming from, there's just so many ways that you can increase the probability of being correct about that.
That's probably actually happening right now. I guarantee you. Depending,
I think a lot of people don't think about con artistry as being important, but it's like seriously, like if you think about like crossing over with John
how
Edwards
many
and
AI
how
Elons have you had trying to sell you a scam that's telling you can quit your job and Elon's got an app for you that's going to make you money? Probably even being advertised on this video to our viewers.
I had a cousin who his husband had a real estate company, and they made an AI version of him, took his face, made a voice to sound like him, and had him reach out to people, hacked his Instagram, and got him to like say he was like a new Bitcoin grifter essentially, and it looked so real. And I was like, I'm really sorry for your loss and for all the people that bought into that, but dang, I want to like, can I get access to your account so I can find that hacker? Because I want to know, like, how is he doing? That was a couple of years ago. It was pretty impressive, you know.
With his Neuralink, I think the coolest thing I think out of that is where he claims to have access to your previous ancestry DNA, like your memory core, your memory log. Like, so like if your great grandfather was Napoleon, you have in your, like, we all have it in our DNA. It's just creating access to that. And that's what I like about some of the AI that he's creating, is because he's opening up the access to the information that's already within us, that's here. And so he's gaining access to that stuff that is basically dormant at this point.
What were you say, Winslow?
I found another story arc there. So when I was talking about the neuroscientists in San Diego, and what you were just talking about, how there's a lot of value there for DNA, and like just the data in that DNA from, you know, Napoleon's time or even farther back. Think about the neuroscientists who are able to make someone hallucinate a memory, say, in the future. So backwards time travel could become a thing where you can go back in time through the data on the DNA in our ancestors and our own DNA.
And you bringing that up, I gotta tie it into a conversation I had earlier with Holohan, and he showed me this video on Y-Files of this guy in his like time machine, where like Jeff, are you? Oh yes, shit. Jeff, are you there? Can you tell us about what I'm, the Y-Files guy?
For sure. Matt, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good.
Yeah, Madman Markham, right? And it's insane. So I was also telling Bernie last night, I did Iboga 10 years ago. I was a heroin junkie for about 9 years, and so Iboga is a 48-hour DMT trip style, and what you do, even the write-up that it comes with, it says you will relive every single cornerstone in your life that led you to the point of being a junkie. My father watched over me for the 48 hours. There was one point I jumped up. I was like, "It's me, Holohan! Don't shoot! Don't shoot!" This is when I got shot at when I was a teenager, and then I relived it a different way, so it happened differently, and things like this. So you fully have every memory inside of you, and it's also interesting. I want to say right quick too, talking about the AI. I'm obsessed with language, and I always say too, demonstrative words, spelled demonstrative, and subconsciously when you read this, that, those demons, that's why texting is so horrible. You're reading demon over in your mind, is why you read it wrong. And but it's also so neat to think AI, so we all become one, which is supposed to be the end goal. But if we're controlled by something else and we all become the same one that is now accepting we'll never know nothing, we just keep regurgitating the same old past, then we'll never have the breakthrough, right? It's like, who are we all trying to be together? I guess is like, that's the scary part. Which way are they going to lead us with the AI? Because it is an artificial, like you said, with the education system, that's what we're taught. And so it's like, well, we're just now going to be pumping that into us times a million over and over. It's like, then we'll never actually break out of this loop, I feel. And so, yeah, Madman Markham, though, right? He was the time machine inventor. And like I was watching with Bernie, like, to me, that's the coolest thing ever. You guys all have to watch it. Obviously, he looks like your classic, like, crackhead guy, but and he was able to make a portal and throw screws through it. He went through it himself apparently, and he came out half a kilometer or 2 miles away, or 80 kilometers or miles away.
I 200 miles.
Yeah, 200, right?
It
2 years. That's right. Sorry. Yeah. And so it's like, I want to learn more about that. Last night I was like, yeah, Bernie, we need to look into this guy immediately, because he's obviously ahead of everybody, right?
Did he do it through sound or two magnets?
On this case, because it seems like legit, and every detail was exactly like the results of what the guys that are fucking around building time temporal experiments.
We got another Box Saga comment. You're gonna have to play Box Saga again. Play it longer this time. Shame on you.
What I wonder though, just before we move off of what Jeff was talking about, Jeff, what I wonder is if it would make a difference between if they put a cap on the AI and if they don't. Because if they put a cap, then yeah, it's going to turn into a loop because it's going to hit a maximum at one point.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
You can't put a cap on AI, so that's the cool thing about AGI is it's a network of AIs.
There shouldn't be a loop. If there's no cap,
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
The moral dilemma with AI is the accessibility of people. So, like, the moral dilemma of AI is that you have a kid in the United States who has a laptop who has access to AI, and then you have a kid in Africa who has no laptop, but they both have the same idea, right? The kid in America is going to have access to AI and is going to create that company to create that idea. But that's the biggest moral dilemma is how do we decide who deserves the equity of AI, right? Because if there's no equity to AI, then the people who created AI get it first, and then they have access to all the tools. And it's in nature, you call it the
control a narrative and the direction of it, and it can go very wrong very quickly that way. Essentially,
what was that? Sorry, I didn't
play the Bach. He's just saying in the hands of a few it could go very wrong.
And I
gotta go. My PC broke. I'm getting it picked up. So next week I'll be able to be on my computer too. I love you guys. You're amazing, and thank you for having me on right quick. And we'll talk really soon. Okay?
Yeah, we're gonna talk more about this stuff, Jeff. Much love to you. Everybody, make sure you check out Jeff's work.
Have a great time, guys.
This is not Bach. This is not Bach Saga. You're doing the wrong song. No one's gonna be happy with this. Here's the link. Here, play the song link I'm sending you.
The battle rapper's gone now.
Oh dear.
No, I think it's interesting though because democratization of AI and technology. It's like, yeah, Nigeria. It's really interesting. You know, like brilliant people in Nigeria and Google and PayPal and all these companies have made it so it's impossible to use the technology there. You know, you can even with the VPN and everything else. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. I'm gonna be quiet on my podcast real quick.
No, you're good.
It's cool. Did you get? But yeah, the idea of access to AI, I think the point of it is become more and more about the more access AI has, like to data, to different people's lives. Right now, training on whales and on dolphins and on animals, so that it's going to be more aware that everyone cares. What you got there?
AI can self-identify as whale.
The human body, right?
Self-identifying whale AI.
Can you solo Winslow over here?
Like, there's so many different parts of the human body that only like one doctor can understand so much about that AI will be able to, piece together everything. And it's going to put a lot of industries at risk, like healthcare,
I think it's weird how we say that at risk. I mean, it's going to disrupt a lot of it's a technological disruption of business models.
It's a value exchange, and at the end of the day, the value that everyone knows is money. So where the money ends up is.
Did you guys hear about that little boy that was like he kept going to doctors and all these specialists, and then they entered his symptoms into ChatGPT, and they finally it was right about his diagnosis. He finally got a diagnosis and started to get the right treatment.
That's awesome.
That's the way it goes. AI is instantly seeing stuff that people can't see and intuit things, and people are upset about that. It weirds me out.
No, and that's like AI. AI can simplify what we overcomplicated, because humans have a way of overcomplicating things, and AI has a way of simplifying everything. And that's what I think AI can bring to the table is just the simplification of a lot of things.
Here, I'm gonna make it work because they're trying to stop you from having your free time. Oh, has he got to work? Play it. Play the thing. Oh, that's horrible. Your
right? I like the first one.
Where's my black hole audio? I might be able to just force it.
How many people? I guess finishing off with Black Jesus, TuPac AI. What about the family? Or no, sorry, the gemstones. Who's seen the gemstones? And is it actually going to be, DMX that comes back as the AI instead first? Like, any thoughts? Nobody's seen the gemstones?
I don't watch it. No, you told me about it, but I don't watch it. No.
What is it? Give us a quick
Much
breakdown.
about the gemstones. Sorry.
Oh,
I mean, I did
God,
see
right.
it.
Breakdown. So there it is. What's his name? The guy from Eastbound and Down.
Danny McBride.
Danny McBride. There we go. He's one of the main characters in it. And then the dad from Roseanne. What's his name? That old guy.
John Goodman.
Yeah, is it John Goodman? I think is like the grandpa.
Man, you're terrible at this.
I know. Yeah. This is the third one of the day, right? I gotta get her done. But point being, John Goodman's wife and Danny McBride's mom was the star of the show, of this family of religious. They were Christian preacher rock and roll band, but the mom was the star, and she died and was dead. And they, the family was like they're in their like megacorp with all their jets, like trying to recover like the luster of their church. And one of the ideas was making hologram mom come back, and they tried to resurrect their mom's like singing as a hologram. And Danny McBride, Danny McBride and John Goodman. First, John Goodman's like, "Stop! It's horrible!" Like starts crying, like his wife, like being portrayed, and they're trying to.
Yes, I win. For those of you who requested Box Saga, just remember, I never disappoint my fans. Your screen share is not as cool as mine. I'm gonna do something here. Box Saga is good.
Is this AI?
This is AI. Yeah, my version of techno is very futurist.
Why is he so angry? He's
Progressive hardcore, bro.
Satan robot.
I make a lot of bubblegum pop. Sorry, it's bubblegum cop's a whole different thing. But also some deathcore. All right, cool. Just wanted to, for those of you who paid for that, you got your money's worth. You know what I mean?
That's super dope. That's AI created.
Yeah.
So what's next month?
Gravitation. Nice. Tell me about it.
It's basically all of Einstein's work on general relativity.
Do you use $20 bills as bookmarks?
You say gender relativity? Because
is it part of the lost gender?
Relatively.
Einstein gets a good and a bad rap. Like, honestly, he deserves a little bit of credit, to be fair. And I do really love Lemaire, and you have to understand most of his really great E equals MC squared work is coming from Lemaire, and Lemaire's work is fantastic, but it needed 20th century. The thing is, Einstein had a lot of people around him, so over his life, the contributions of people that were his peers actually are really important to what shaped the theory of relativity. So I don't know. What do you think about the theory of relativity? Is it completely bullshit? Let's start with James, because James has thoughts on relativity.
Is it bullshit?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the theory of relativity kind of is bullshit, right?
I think, a lot of I believe a lot of science, a lot of math it's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's based on bullshit. And a lot of it is hypothetical. A lot of it is just.
That is true.
It's been a war, man. We've had a war on information for 300 years.
Einstein became
science and religion.
Einstein
And
became really popular by trying to remove God from the Big Bang equation. That's kind of why he was
Yeah.
famous.
No,
right?
that's
like,
what I mean. Like he was one of the attempts of like the overhaul of religion.
but
And
he
that's
couldn't
all-
remove
that's all it
God
was.
from the equation. He ended up
Can't,
eventually
because there is a
admitting-
creator. There is a creator that
or
created
whatever
all
that
this.
is. Yeah.
And it wasn't us.
But yeah,
And it
sorry,
wasn't-
Winslow. What do you
yeah.
think about
You know?
that idea of
There-
relativity and all that?
There is a little bit of a battle there between the science and the religion. In World War II, the ending of the Pacific Theater was done by the 2 atomic bombs. One of the atomic bombs was the Fat Man or the Fat Boy, right? That was dropped on a Catholic holiday
Big
in
bone.
a Catholic city in Japan, and more Catholics were killed than any other demographic that day.
Yeah.
And that was like, the theory is that was Truman's message to the Pope, like saying your time is over. Like,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
And also, your like Pope Pius' interest in the Third Reich was going to be the next thing that he's not going to ignore, right?
I wanted to tie in something that we were talking about behind the scenes a little bit about. We were talking about pigeons, rats, and cockroaches, and how they have become metropolitan. But
Mm-hmm.
while listening to this,
Birds aren't real. Is that where this is going?
no, not yet. There's a lot to be said there. So pigeons, right? Pigeons are from Mesopotamia. We can talk about cockroaches and rats later, but pigeons are, in a sense, like the most Western type of pest there is. Like, and if you think about like a lot of the culture that we have in the West, like the Third Reich, for example, and even the United States, we use eagles. We use the symbol of the bird as our like, and yeah, it's just it's a little funny because it's a pest. Like the pigeon is a pest, but it's there's a lot of things about the pigeon that make it very, very intelligent.
You ever seen a Malaysian pigeon before?
Is that a Malaysian pigeon right there?
I love them. I really want to like, if I could practice any form of eugenics, it would be to bring Malaysian pigeons to America. You know, I want the general pigeon to have the opportunity to have this many colors. I mean, it's so beautiful, right?
What
Like,
do you call a pigeon in Tibet?
what do you call a pigeon in Tibet?
Budapest. Huh?
That
I just made that one up. That was just freestyle.
was really great. I like
Have you
it.
ever looked at a pigeon's? That is really great. By the way.
We'll accept.
Have you ever looked at a pigeon's wing and noticed the iridescence on it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I watched a video a couple days ago and talking about opal and the iridescence of opal, the gemstone, and apparently the only reason that happens is because the structure of the opal, or my question is does the pigeon bend light? Like, does the structure of the feather bend light itself?
I believe that's the deal, right? Because it's different sizes that's pulling in a certain amount of light. So the par density of certain parts of the like this is what they find with butterfly wings, right? When you zoom in super, super, super close, it's not really color, right?
I got a chance to go do a private tour of the Science Academy here in San Francisco, and they have the largest collection of butterflies on the west of the Mississippi. Pretty cool. If you ever get a chance to go look at a giant bug collection, highly recommend it. Really cool.
Yeah, insects are amazing. I think that's the other thing we always think, like, to emulate human form, but insects are stronger. It's pretty logical that you'd want to be like an insect, and like, you know, birds like to eat insects. So
while we're still on the pests thing, I wanted to bring up a little bit of a teaser of the cockroaches. So to break it down, civilization and empires have capitals, right? Like the capital of our empire is Washington, D.C. in a sense, but every empire in history has had a capital, like London for the British Empire. They are all centered on a swamp. Every single one of them. Beijing, they're all in a swamp. And there's a biodefense there, but they all have cockroaches. And there's a theory that the cockroach is invincible, right? You can't kill it with a nuclear bomb, yada, yada, yada. There's also another theory, and this is the teaser I want to tell you about, is that the strongest cockroach colony in the entire world is the colony that inhabits the building that Congress meets in. So
What?
and it's interesting because we were all of our empires were built on swamps, right? Drain the swamp. That's so funny. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of microbiology to that, and there's a scarab. That's another thing.
The thing with the cockroach, the dung beetle. One time I was in Argentina, I saw a cockroach in Buenos Aires. I didn't like it, and I was trying to be all Californian about it. So I got a cup, put it in, took it to the window, and was gonna throw it out the window, and it just opened its wings, and this cockroach just flew across the street, like it was gliding all the way to the other part of Palermo, Hollywood. So I was just like, that's crazy, and just immediately was thinking about like the scarab beetle and like this idea of worshiping the beetle. And the dung beetle isn't much better than a cockroach. It's actually really similar in a lot of ways. So, and the metaphor of the dung beetle is similar, that it dies and births out of the dung. It's like a phoenix kind of an idea.
Did you ever hear about that Victor Grabenovich? I believe his name is
Grabenikov.
The guy who worked with the locust wings and created levitation with the mechanics of the scarab wing, like beetles.
Oh yeah.
You can create a system to levitate with just the way that they interact with each other. Yep,
That's
there it is.
freaking brilliant. Well, we got about 10 minutes left. Is there anything you guys want to also make sure we cover in the meantime? And also, Winslow, make sure we do this again. But also, James, you got your hand up. I see your hand.
I would like you to plug my album that's coming out in 15 minutes.
Well, that's what this is all about. This is where we're going, right? So,
Okay.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
do you want us to wait until like the end of O, or do you want us to here? Give me the link to put up on the screen share so people can be waiting at the page.
Okay. Well, for what? Because I have
We had it preloaded, and then I had to restart my computers 10 times. So we're gonna need a minute to figure this out.
Because at the beginning of this, because it's not on platforms for another 17 minutes or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I have all the files
But I can find you on X, right? If I type in Gnostik, isn't that I'm gonna find you?
I'm not on Twitter, bro. I don't do that.
All right. Well.
No, I'm on IG.
all right. What's your IG?
That's my Gnostik I am. So GNOSTIK.
Yeah.
_ I _ AM.
Ooh.
And then
_I _ AM. Okay.
Yeah. And then I have my link there for you can Spotify and Apple.
Here, pull up the page, Bernie, would you?
But you can go to YouTube too.
I'm trying to see if I have.
I have the screen share. I have the screen share.
I see
set up.
what you're saying. I see.
Yeah.
Sorry, I gotta go back downstairs one moment.
But yeah, I guess fuck. Now that it's like close enough, the link. I do my own distribution through, I'm an independent artist, so.
Nice. She's pulling up the screen. Look at him walking in the other room there. So meta.
Look
So
at
you guys
that.
go to United Master /M, but you can find it from the Gnostik I am right here. And there's the link right there. And once you get there, the Spotify pre-save and Apple pre-save is right there. Put your email address in there, and you can get special messages in the newsletter from Gnostik. And you can hear a preview real quick. Let me just do the.
I got.
You're also here.
It's a vibe. This album is a vibe. I got two different.
I like the lo-fi chill.
Yeah.
Don't give me a copyright violation.
Oh no, it's good. No,
You're going to like this album, guys. So it's coming out in the next 10 minutes or so 15 minutes. So make sure you go to Gnostik I am, and you can find him right there on Instagram, and from there, United Masters to get his music.
Yeah. So I got this album, then I got another album that I'm gonna be dropping in like a month and maybe month and a half.
Sweet.
So like this one is like more like story based. This one is like I didn't put any of my bangers on it. I didn't put anything that would ever be translated as like a club hit or like a fucking radio type song. This one's all just like kind of like
vibe and experience.
Vibe, yeah. It's a story. It's a story. Yeah. If you close your eyes, get high, and imagine a story, it tells a whole story. You know, and then at the end of it, you know, my last song is kind of a curation into my next album, which is kind of an album that's like a story again, but the story is like kind of a story to my son, my next album, you know, like in its own context, looking at it kind of now, like as I look at all the songs and how I compiled it, it's like, yeah, this is all like life lesson stuff but it's also like me telling my story, telling him stuff that he might not have known about life and everything like that. And so I'm really excited for it. Like you're talking about making spells and magic before, and it's like, yeah, like 15 years ago when I was doing music, I was trying to create stuff where I was some kind of martyr. You know, I was a martyr that, you know, was gonna die for like all this shit. And it's like, yeah, I might still like, you know, in the back of my mind think like that's a possibility, but it's not something that I want to create continually.
Right.
Know, talking about being in you know, negative.
Gotta produce a positive reality.
Yeah. So like
making the most out of your life before.
Yeah, what Bernie said.
Yeah. Well, so like this album's accumulation of the shit that's happened, shit that I'm going through now, and shit that's gonna happen in the future. So that's kind of how I like to fucking look at it, you know.
A prophetic story. All
and
right.
Timelines.
Also, let me pull up Julia's page too.
Definitely. Gotta share the camera.
Julia, I don't really know you, but nice to meet you.
Julia's in the dark tonight. Just as lovely as
you have to check out, go to my Instagram, follow me. I talk every once in a while.
Okay.
I post some stuff. I'm really good at music. I can't go to the States right now.
Who would want to?
I don't. Man, I had a journey. I was gonna go before my trials and everything like that.
His story is a journey. You know, you had a Haitian son, and you moved to Saskatchewan, and you faced some racism. You called it out for him. They gave you bullshit charges. You're
along the way ran into a fucking Crown Run fucking human trafficking going on in the same like, man, I went through some shit and they stuck me with everything just so they can try to fuck me, because the whole way I was telling the cops every time, like anytime they would take me to the mental facility or the cops trying to say I'm crazy, trying to put me on medication, do this, like they just shot themselves in the foot the whole way that they were doing it, because slowly everything started to validate itself, like throughout the province, throughout the community, and throughout the world, with the shit that I was saying that they were trying to make me look stupid for. Right. And so this album's kind of a partial explanation on some of that and kind of some of the shit that I went through, and yeah, like I say, when it's a story, like some people have rap albums and they're talking about parties or talking this and that. It's like, this is just my story. That's why it's a dark. That's why my album cover is black. You know, it's
sweet.
Yeah.
And make sure you guys go to juliacommon.com, remote seer, remote viewer, researcher, speaker, and also we'll do another show really soon, Julia. I know we came kind of midway through, so we'll do some extra. And you're not allowed to know anything about Winslow. Go back to sleep, basically. No, I mean, is there anything you want them to share, Winslow?
I got a lot more to share with you guys on a future podcast.
Yeah, that's what we'll be doing something really soon and everything. This was completely impromptu and everything, and we like hodgepodged everything together, but it's really a celebration of Gnosticism, hip hop, Jesus Christ consciousness, and I think also truth, which is something James is all about, is trying to reveal the truth despite people trying to suppress him from telling them. So I think it's interesting. Like, it's weird how this is all tied together to physics. I love it. This is great.
And AI.
Huh.
AI,
or the I, as you say. I like that.
Yeah. Hey, I got a song that's coming. That's going to happen on my third album, because I'm calculating. I got to calculate it. That's just what I do. And it's called I've Been I.
Peter Tosh would like that.
I even think that I might even call my album I dash I.
Nice.
So like I. So it's like I.
Aye.
Captain.
But it'd be I and then EYE. I.
Oh, like a BurnEye. I got you.
Yeah.